On May the 7th, in those elections that took place where Reform made breakthroughs, remarkable breakthroughs in Wales and in Scotland, something else happened. We pretty much took out the Labour Party in their heartlands of the North East, the North West, Yorkshire, the West Midlands. And I knew on the morning of May the 8th, one thing was for certain, which was that Keir Starmer would not remain our Prime Minister, and he's gone. And we did it. We did it. And now we have a new Prime Minister. We have a new Prime Minister who got a mate of his to stand down, who coincidentally, purely coincidentally, you understand, is now going to get a well-paid job in Downing Street. Funny that. And of course, he became the leader of the Labour Party, unopposed. He says, amongst many other things, that he wants to bring about the biggest change in politics in 40 years. This man has no mandate whatsoever. He didn't stand on the 2024 general election manifesto. You cannot make the biggest change in British politics in 40 years without a mandate from the British people, and it will be only decent, right and proper to call a general election on that issue and to do it now. Otherwise, kind of, what's the point of general elections? I mean, we used to laugh at the Italians, didn't we? And now we've had 7 prime ministers in Downing Street in the space of 10 years. But first I want to focus on East Anglia and what happened in Essex and Suffolk and here in Norfolk on that day. This part of England has been rock solid Conservative since before anybody alive can remember. And yet the results that we got through on that evening and the following day were stunning. Massive victories for reform in all of these areas. But you wouldn't know it if you watched our mainstream media and read particularly our conservative-leaning newspapers who've been telling us since well before Christmas that there is a Kemi bounce. Oh yes. Michael Gove particularly will keep telling you about the Kemi bounce. Everything's changed because she's done well at Prime Minister's questions. Mind you, look who she was up against. The Kemi bounce. The Conservatives are on the way back. And they every week come up with a policy that is completely the opposite to what they did in 14 years in government. Whether it was mass migration on a scale you can't even believe, whether it was allowing the boats to start crossing the English Channel, which still they do, putting into place insane net zero policies and writing them into law, the march of woke through all of our institutions. All of this happened under the Conservatives. But it's okay, because if Kemi says the opposite, they're going to have a massive bounce and win the next election. That is what you would believe if you looked at Conservative commentators over the course of the last few months. Well, there's been one big electoral test since May the 7th, and it happened here in Norfolk last Thursday. Here in true blue, Tory Norfolk, the Conservatives succeeded in getting 15% of the vote. There's the Kemi bounce for you, folks. And whilst the role of Police and Crime Commissioner may not survive for more than a couple of years, we get the mayors who will then have responsibility. I have to say, I thought Colin Sutton, not just winning last Thursday, but getting nearly double the number of votes of the second place, wasn't just of itself an astonishing victory, but given that he's Britain's best known living detective, I cannot think of a better man to do this job for the course of the next 2 years and to begin to change the national debate around policing culture. Congratulations, Colin Sutton. It's a very, very big win, and I think you'll see Colin become very much a part of the national debate around law and order, because here's the funny thing. There's hardly any national debate, is there, around law and order? I've just been with a farmer from Essex this morning who just tells me rural crime is off the scale. Not just the theft of machinery, of crops, even of livestock, but people coming onto the land to pursue all sorts of illegal hobbies and pursuits, and if he challenges them, threatened with burning down the buildings. The Wild West, lawlessness, and that's happening all over East Anglia. And we have a capital city in London where men now do not wear watches. Women don't wear jewellery. And one of the reasons that so many people are leaving our country, hundreds of thousands of people a year are leaving Britain, and very often, some of our brightest and best, is fear of crime, fear of living their lives normally. We have the early release of prisoners, people who committed heinous crimes, serving nothing like their sentence. Again, attacked by the Conservatives, who themselves let out 160,000 prisoners early. The two-party system has failed Britain in so many ways. But in terms of law and order, it's our job to get this issue pushed back up to the top or very near the top of public debate in this country, and Colin Sutton's election will help us do that. One of the last acts of David Lammy in government. You're gutted he's gone, aren't you? I can tell. One of David Lammy's last acts in government was to attempt to use the law to stop us finding out who the perpetrators of crime are. We know some basic statistics. We know that an Afghan male is 22 times more likely to be convicted of rape or a sexual offence than a British-born male. But there's so much more that we don't know. Now, all of this gets willfully misinterpreted as Reform want to paint anybody from a different religion or skin colour or background as somehow being bad people. Nothing could be further from the truth. We understand and recognise our relationships with the Commonwealth, the wider world. And much as our talented people often want to go and work somewhere else, we welcome talented people who want to come and work here. Yes, work. Pay taxes. Benefit the country. And if they choose to settle, for their kids to become British and integrated. And I think we as a country have been, frankly, more tolerant, more open-minded than any of our European neighbours on this issue. But what is unacceptable is for Boris Johnson to have allowed 3.8 million people to come into Britain, and only 17% of them are on work permits. Most of the rest, if they're granted indefinite leave to remain, and Shabana Mahmood, I thought, was going to take up our proposal of extending it from 5 years to 10 years. Well, given how left-wing the Labour Party is now, I very much doubt that's going to happen. So that places massive cultural strains and economic strains. But when it comes to what is crossing the English Channel, be in no doubt, there are many of those young men who are coming into this country with the intentional aim of joining criminality in our community. In fact, in many cases, it's the criminal gangs who pay the trafficker the fee to get them across. And if they are, as I suspect, causing a disproportionate amount of crime in our community, we deserve to know the truth, and will keep the pressure on the Labour government for the full facts and figures to be given to us as and when we can. They can. So Andy Burnham, last Friday, gave his address to the Labour Party, having been elected. Well, I say elected. Unopposed election. And it was really interesting because I'd spotted on the 5th of July 2024, when Starmer became Prime Minister, and he walked out to the lectern in Downing Street, lovely morning. He'd known for a year he was going to win the election, to give his address to the nation. And I watched him, he kept looking down at his notes. 166 times the Prime Minister looked down at his notes the day after he'd won the election. And I thought to myself, that's not a conviction politician. That's somebody reading off the script. Andy Burnham last Friday, in what was, to be fair, a much longer speech, looked down at his notes, less pronounced than Starmer, 266 times. So we advertised that fact, and that's why yesterday he walked into Downing Street and spoke without notes for a very short period of time. I think we're getting under his skin already, even before he officially became the Prime Minister. Now, given the abuse that I've had in the press lately, and some of my friends and colleagues have had in the press lately, I wonder whether the effective Deputy Prime Minister, Louise Hay, will be addressed in every single BBC broadcast and newspaper article as convicted fraudster Louise Hay. I wonder. And we've got Jonathan Reynolds, he's still there, openly lied about being a qualified solicitor, but what does that matter between friends? Still in high office. The housing minister, you could make this bit up, could you? The housing minister, clearly vastly underpaid on stamp duty, and the list goes on. But all of that really is gossip. What really matters is that I don't believe that Andy Burnham can actually tackle the real issues facing our society. Take, for example, this morning's announcement that 5% will be cut from people's electricity bills. How ironic that the first big statement from the Prime Minister is to do something that is only allowed because of Brexit. Without Brexit, the 5%, excuse me, the 5% would have had to stay. But does that address the real issue of the cost of living, of running your home? No. 86% of houses in Britain are heated by oil or gas, not by electricity. And that's just for starters. But if you add up all of the green levies, the renewable obligation certificates, and I could go on, if you got rid of all of those, you'd reduce household bills by £200 per household, not the £45 offered by Burnham this morning. Is he? He talks about reindustrialisation. Well, we need reindustrialisation. It's madness to offshore to India or elsewhere many of the products and goods that we need for everyday life, to have them produced under lower environmental standards, and then the product shipped back to us into Felixstowe or Harwich or wherever it may be. But you cannot reindustrialise if you carry on with insane net zero policies written into law by the Conservatives and now carried on with even greater glee by Labour. Now, their answer is to fill the North Sea up with wind turbines, to cover East Anglia in pylons, to give us expensive electricity. And Miliband's already agreed a 20-year strike price with the companies for the electricity production for the next 20 years. Well, Richard Tice and I made it clear before those deals were signed, if Reform wins the next election, we will cancel those contracts. Renewables do not have to have subsidy. Not for us. And will Andy Burnham stop the boats? No. Not a hope in hell. Not a hope in hell. As we saw with the last Conservative government and now with this one. All the while we stay part of the ECHR, we are not free in this country to get rid of those who come into our nation illegally, and that is very near the top of voters' priorities. I've spoken already about law and order. Will there be a coherent Burnham plan for law and order? Not a hope of it. Indeed, all the really big fundamental issues that affect people's lives will not be changed by this Prime Minister. This Prime Minister and those he's now chosen to be around him will take this country down a route further to the left. More tax and equivalent to a couple of £1,000 per household in this country. Their borrowing projection when they came to power for the 5-year term is now out by 80% already. We are borrowing money more quickly than any other country on earth other than Botswana. It's great for a pub quiz, that one, isn't it? I don't believe this government will tackle any of these things. Indeed, I believe it won't just be more of the same, it'll be worse than it was before. But I end today as I began. This endless game of musical chairs taking place in Downing Street is something that I believe the British public have become increasingly tired of. But if one Prime Minister is replaced by another, if the new man or woman says, well, I'll carry on the work that was there before, you might justify the change on the basis that that is the manifesto upon which the party was elected. Andy Burnham was not elected. Andy Burnham has been in Manchester for all these years. Incidentally, his pledge to wipe out homelessness hasn't happened in Manchester, so we'll see. At some point, we're going to get a 10-year plan. That 10-year plan is going to be, as he's told us now more than once, the biggest change to our politics in 40 years. Yes, it's back to the future. We're going back to the 1970s, God help us. Andy Burnham has no mandate. No mandate whatsoever to bring about the biggest change for 40 years in British politics, and downstream from that, the biggest change in this country in 40 years. The Conservatives don't want an election. Funny that. The Liberal Democrats don't want an election. Funny that. The British people clearly, in opinion polls, by a large majority, do want a new general election, especially if there's a Prime Minister who comes in with no mandate and wants to make fundamental change and reform, and I'm proud of this. You only got the vote in Norfolk on May the 7th because despite the fact for the second year in a row, the Conservatives who ran Norfolk tried to delay the election, you got the election in Norfolk because of our legal action that we fought, and I'm proud of that. We're the party that says, trust the people. We're the party that says, let the people decide. And we want and we demand a general election, not just on our behalf, but for voters who won't vote for us anyway. It's right and proper that we have an election now. We will campaign hard for it going on from here. Thank you very much for coming along this morning. And Colin Sutton, where are you? Come here. I promise you we're very, very lucky to have a man of Colin's experience, integrity, and his commitment to public service.